Hey everybody, it's your friend Adam. I am here with Gary Edwards and Pragmatic Culture, and this is just sort of a spontaneous stream. We were on Twitter. Oh my, hold on. Sorry about that. Duh. It's late at night here. It's 10:30. So we are just talking about Jeff Holiday. We've been kind of in a tweet exchange. I don't know. Did you actually start the tweet exchange, Pragmatic Culture? Joe?
I don't think I did. I think yeah. Oh, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Is it all good?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I think what started it off was I actually forget the exact thing that happened. I'd have to go back through my mentions a little bit. I know what really set it off though was Jeff made the statement on Twitter that philosophy was the absence of evidence. And that unironically kind of triggered me. And at first I sort of just laughed at it, but then I realized he was kind of serious about it, and I don't think he understood all the it, underpinnings philosophy has for the sciences and everything we study. And I added a couple other guys on Twitter from Weird Catholic Twitter to go in on it too, and I think it kind of went downhill from there.
So you said philosophy is the evidence of absence. Does he mean by that philosophy there's no evidence for philosophical claims? Is that do you think what he meant?
Well, no, he said philosophy is the absence of evidence, as in philosophy is just incapable of providing evidence entirely.
Right, so it's the ease of identity, as in you fall back on philosophy when you've got no evidence of what you're saying.
What is empiricism? Like, how does empiricism fit into that?
Yeah, the thing is, what is any discussion of what evidence is? Is evidence rational? Can evidence be found in purely rational, a priori sort of claims, or does it require? All of those questions are philosophical. Philosophy is the discussion of what evidence is philosophy. You can't even really grasp the concept until you properly thought it through in a thought through way, until you've done philosophy. So
absolutely
the claim that philosophy is just this, you're just using the word salad because you've got no evidence is ridiculous, because you can't even really say what you mean by evidence, and in a thought through way, and in a way that isn't just reflexive, until you've done philosophy.
Well, somehow I got caught up in this battle, and Jeff ended up, I followed Jeff. I've done live streams with Jeff. Jeff ended up unfollowing me. And I don't know if he muted me or what, but does
he think that you've just become some kind of irrationalist theist?
I know, that's what he's debating this caricature of me because he thinks that I like Jordan Peterson.
Yeah,
he totally misunderstands Jordan Peterson's argument, which, I mean, if you're following Jordan Peterson just had a debate with Sam Harris. He had a 2-night debate with Sam Harris, and the debate hasn't been released yet, but word on the street is like, it's out. Like, Jordan Peterson is an atheist. so I don't know. Like, his argument is for the secular utility of religion, which is backed up by tons of studies. Like, he's an intuitionist, like Haidt. Like, he's pitching Haidt's ideas all day, every day, as far as I'm concerned.
So he's making a claim for, or he's supporting the anthropologist's God, or the anthropological theology, rather than any kind of philosophical, metaphysical theology.
Yeah, he believes in the concept of God. but Jeff is trying to debate me like I've fallen for the Sky Daddy or something like that. And I keep asking him, like, what? I can't understand where you're coming from. Like, why are you debating this caricature of me? Like, why are you making, like, I even had other friends of mine chiming in like, no, you're completely misrepresenting his point of view. And I mean, I've invited him onto the stream, but he's tweeted out that he'll never do a stream with me again. There's also there's the last tweet that he's actually added me at is maybe next time, friended forever, I'll be big enough and you won't need me to bring in a bigger name to boost your channel. Meanwhile, your friends try to drag in Nick Fuentes to debate religion versus science. Good call. I mean, before VidCon, I tweet Jordan Peterson stuff. I'm sure you see it, Gary. You follow me. Pragmatic Culture, you see it, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm wondering if just he sees this stuff from Jordan Peterson and it's like triggered. Like,
yeah,
like,
I mean, it's the thing with Peterson is he does make he does argue for an anthropological God sometimes, but sometimes in his other tweets when he's actually making kind of like a classical rationalist theological argument. If he's sort of referencing well, God is that which is necessary in order to have value, and is appealing to some kind of a priori category, some kind of Kantian category. Then that's like William Lane Craig. That's standard standard theism.
When have you ever seen him do that though? Like for the entire time I've been looking at Jordan Peterson, I've been seeing him as an atheist and constantly looking for him making the argument for a literal God. And I have never seen him do it once.
We're sort of at a disadvantage here because we haven't seen his debate, the actual content of his debate with Harris. But there's a tweet that he did the other day, about 2 days ago, where he made this kind of reference, I believe, to God as a first principle, but as a principle of being rather than as a fact, but nevertheless as a principle, which is an a priori conception.
How is that not just the idea of God, though? He's not talking about a literal God.
The way he said it was clearly Kantian, and that sort of suggests there's a branch of apologetics which isn't atheistic, which can appeal to that. The categories that we use, we need to make our morality make sense, somehow infers a supernatural being as a matter of principle. And there was an element of that in that tweet that people who've argued against apologists would recognise. But then again, you say you can read a lot of what he says as being an anthropological argument, an argument that God serves a role in human societies as a guide. And then you get into that thing of that might be the case, but if religion, like I was saying I was sort of joking about in the group chat, if religion is an app, have you downloaded the Enlightenment upgrade?
So I only know about the Kantian-Humean divide because I know that a bunch of hype people follow me and a bunch of theists follow me. And it seems like the theists always come down on the side of Kant, and the hype people are always on the side of Hume.
Yeah, the empiricism versus rationalism divide. Yeah, and that's the thing. Sometimes it might have been pushed by Harris for some kind of response on something, and Peterson seems to have gone to the Kantian side a little bit, whereas you're defending him on Humean grounds.
Go ahead, Joe.
It's almost weird that it's talked about in terms of Humean and Kantian, because really neither of especially not Hume, but even Kant really wasn't particularly useful, or his philosophy isn't particularly helpful to the Christian mindset, because really what Kant's whole project was in trying to establish the categorical imperative was to try to firewall religion in a sense out of the world of reason, because the whole point of the categorical imperative is in some sense to make it so that if you can just find this universal maxim by which to live and by which we can all live, then that's all you need. You really don't need God. And so I find it, of course, it's the greater debate of, sort of a more rationalistic worldview versus an empirical worldview, which is obviously sort of embodied by Kant and Hume. But it's interesting that Kant has become an avatar almost for a Christian theist when he really wasn't.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
Kant's program was to sort of firewall off God and say that it's the earnest talk of God or earthly talk of God is kind of idolatry, and it's noumenal, and we can't really. Of course, it didn't work because the next generation of Prussian philosophers like Hegel, they just jumped in straight away with the theology, and it becomes an issue of how you base how the categories of thought are based. What are they based in? And so there is a kind of Kant's sort of urging people to have caution or not really talk about God directly didn't work, unfortunately. But so there is kind of like a rationalist versus empiricist. It is this product of the Enlightenment. It's theology within an Enlightenment setting where there is a division between the empiricists and the rationalists.
You're on the Hume side, though, correct, Gary?
I'm an empiricist. I'm a naturalist, yes.
Yeah, totally.
I'm a naturalist and an empiricist, yes, and therefore an atheist in an active sense, in that I believe there's less than a 0.5 probability of a supreme creator deity. You can have what you call an S God, a supreme God, which is a God who has all the maximized virtue, all the maximized rational characteristics, but then you can have like a lesser God, which is an idea that is amenable to naturalistic analysis.
But are you? I mean, you understand when Peterson is talking about the hierarchy of value, he's talking about whatever is at the top of your hierarchy of value is your God, which is obviously hugely, it has huge metaphorical connotations. But I mean, if you look at it through the lens of moral foundations theory, which you're familiar with, which is Haidt's game, I mean, Haidt is basically talking about the same thing. He's talking about, we have these moral foundations, and some people place more emphasis on some moral foundations and some people place emphasis on others. How is that completely dissimilar from what Peterson is talking about?
Like I said, there's clearly an aspect to what Peterson's dealing with where he's read the empirical literature, the sort of like the evo psych stuff and the that kind of, that's obviously an influence on his thinking, which is something that is one of the reasons why it's the real reason why SJWs don't like him is because of that. That's what they really don't like.
You mean it's a social intuitionist model playing itself out?
Yeah, they don't. They will call it evo psych, and they'll cast it in a certain kind of way, and they don't like what it is basically. They don't like naturalism. They don't like addressing socio-political sciences if it's continuous with the natural sciences. It goes against their ideology.
It's rather funny that they try to co-opt certain elements of it. Like they'll take certain elements of biopsychology and use it to talk about the gender issue.
Sure.
They'll take other issues like just chromosomal issues and like the hard biological sciences, so to speak, and try to warp it to that. So they'll really just pick and choose what naturalism they like the most.
When it suits, it's a matter of when it suits. If it's seen as destabilizing something that they don't like ideologically, then it's great. If it stabilizes something that they do like ideology, then it's just white male power or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not a principled position. But yeah, Peterson's got an element of that, and that's. But he seems now to be also making appeals to the other side of the apologetic, which is that for God to be your ultimate value, God must be ultimate good, and therefore he must be a supreme substantive creator being. There's bits of that seem to creep in. So there is some confusion there between what Peterson stands. But here's the thing. Look, Peterson's somebody who's thinking things through. He doesn't have to be a godlike figure. Just because he's popular, just because he's filling theatres, it doesn't mean he has to be the Messiah. Who's got the Messiah? Who thinks Peterson is the Messiah here? The people who are for him or against him? I think the people who are against him seem to portray him as a Messiah figure much more than the people who are for him.
Totally. Yeah, no, he's not my God at all. Like I like his idea.
Yeah.
I'm looking at his idea. I think the reason why I started really paying attention to Jordan Peterson, and you'll understand this because you've been following my channel, Gary, since I started. Like I started YouTube because I was interested in moral foundations theory. I thought it was fascinating, and I thought that the atheist theist debates were just like so 10 years ago, and that we really should be debating the secular utility of religion. And Haidt goes into this stuff. And once I started looking at Peterson, I kept thinking, wow, there's a lot of overlap between Peterson and Haidt, and everybody seems to be interested in what Peterson is saying. So if I can illuminate some of that overlap, where I think Haidt really has the science on his side and has the evidence on his side, I'm going to point it out.
I think the last 10 years or so, the philosophy and the debate has come down to earth a little, to become more political and less metaphysical.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can still recognize the same arguments and same sort of ideas, but yeah, what you're saying, for example, what Peterson's saying about theology and religion, you could say about nationalism.
Totally. And Haidt would make that same argument.
You know, and they're similar arguments, but nationalism perhaps is more of a directly pressing issue at the moment because it's political and there's a lot of debate about borders and so forth. But it's interesting that views. But the interesting thing about what Peterson says, or the Peterson phenomena, isn't so much the content, the truth of what he's saying, his claims, but the way that people have responded to them and the popularity and the impact that he's had on people, both who agree with him and who don't. That's the interesting phenomena. What Peterson says, sometimes Peterson says things that are true. Sometimes Peterson says things that are distinctly not true, but it's, you know, that's okay. It's just the fact that he's up there and saying them and the way people are responding is that's the really interesting thing.
He gets one thing horribly wrong that it always bugs me. He talks about the left brain, right brain thing, but if you know the current science on it's the left brain, right brain thing is totally off. So that bugs me because it's not.
Yeah, he has his grasp of the empirical stuff is broad, but it's not particularly deep.
Totally.
But that's okay. That's okay. The thing that interests me, as I was saying earlier, is that in just mentioning that, it brings down so much approbation on him. You know, I really like to say naturalism is the other N word.
Well, he has said as much as that. Brett Weinstein has said the exact same thing. So I have a super chat I should read, and then Joe, you had something to say. Man Faces World for $5 says, all this drama around Jordan B. Peterson and anti-theist provides lots of material for Stryker, social justice warrior. Yeah, totally. It's so ironic to me that the triggering is happening technically on my side now. Like I think of myself as a skeptic. Like at its heart, I am a fedora tipper. Like I just it bugs me that these people are not they're not being empirical. They're not focusing on the empirical evidence. Joe, you want to say something?
Well, yeah, kind of going off of what you were saying, I was going to say you get it from both sides. Like I'm one of the people who gets a little bit annoyed at you for how annoyingly aphilosophical some of your arguments are when I try to talk to you about morality. But then you have the people on the other side who will come at you because they think you're trying to moralize and you're being an apologist about things. So you're stuck in the middle on all of this, and it kind of sucks. But I think what makes it infinitely more difficult is that people like Jordan Peterson try to be philosophers, and they come at it from the perspective of the narrow perspective of the field where they have real expertise in, which is in Peterson's case, psychology. In Harris's case, it's neuroscience. And they try to apply their view from that one specific field to their philosophy. And they end up coming out with these all statements that are seemingly true, but are very confusing to the mass. They decipher it from their point of view, but decipher it in terms of like what it means in a philosophical context as well. And so like Jordan Peterson doesn't help himself out in a lot of ways because of that.
Yeah, Jeff is going off on philosophy, and I mean Gary knows. Like how many streams have I said I hate philosophy on?
Quite a few.
Exactly. But I mean, obviously, like I have the utmost respect for you, Gary. Gary brings rational arguments. Like I believe most of the stuff that I'm saying out of ignorance, but like I'm willing to admit that. So
yeah, but why why are people attacking philosophy because of Jordan Peterson? Then, if why are people saying philosophy has no evidence because of Jordan Peterson? I don't get that jump.
Well, I think
Yeah,
I think people think philosophy. I think people think of religion as a philosophy, and just philosophy is just a secular type religion, but it's not based on evidence. I think that's the problem.
Science in waiting, as if philosophy is just something that's not. It's a conjecture that isn't good enough to be a science yet.
Yeah, navel gazing. I mean, that's the way it's commonly conceived.
But that's just an ignorance of what philosophy is.
Yeah, I admit it. It's an ignorance on my part as well. But I think it was who was a physicist that came out and said philosophy's dead? Stephen Hawking. Yeah, so, when you have the most famous scientist in the world come out and say philosophy is dead, it's going to embolden some people.
And it's a question of
that's such a gross statement.
What philosophers are they reading, and what if any, and what do they think philosophy is? Don't they realize that as scientists, they're engaged in a branch of philosophy, of natural philosophy?
So I discovered another Jeff Holiday tweet where he's actually got a screenshot of the show. When you literally challenge a Jordan B. Peterson fan and 3 Catholics to a debate on morality, get told only if you get the famous atheist YouTuber to come on, and then I tell you to go fuck yourself. I should have bleeped myself out. You get this fame-sucking cocksucker. I don't. That doesn't make any sense to me, because this is like.
Can you quote tweet that? Because I want to see that. This is like levels of butthurt that shouldn't even be possible.
I don't get it. I honestly don't get it, because it's like,
the accusation is: Are you doing this kind of? Are you citing Peterson and stoking up this anti-theist Jordan Peterson debate just to boost yourself and to your Think Club channel? And
Gary, I was doing this 2 years before Jordan Peterson was even famous. 2 years before Jordan Peterson who Jordan Peterson before anyone knew who Jordan Peterson was. Like, I'm a height guy. Like, I am a rationalist materialist, just like Sam Harris is like, the only difference between me and Sam Harris is Sam Harris doesn't like. Sam Harris is ignoring the science on intuitionism. But I mean, I'm a rational materialist. I think that we can understand religion in a materialist frame.
Right.
And I have to chime in with but briefly, but I think materialism is the grossest of all metaphysical stances. But that might just be me.
But that's a different debate. But the thing,
yes, it is.
Okay, if Peterson was being irrationalist and said, "No, forget all the empirical stuff. I just believe, I just believe in the Lord, and the Lord is it's implicit. Is a basic belief. You have to believe in the Lord like you believe in lorries when you cross all trucks."
First of all,
kind of thing. Then you'd be like, "Hold on a second."
I would jump ship immediately. Like, I've been waiting for that moment, but I keep Jordan. Do you agree with me that Jordan Peterson understands the social intuitionist model?
Yeah, he's clearly read that.
He's had 2 podcasts with Jonathan Haidt. He mentions Jonathan Haidt in every other speaking engagement.
Sure, he's digested them, and he's digested them in his way. He's Peterized them. But yeah,
totally. So, but if you,
where his opponents, many of his opponents haven't.
But listen, if Jordan Peterson has been a clinical psychologist for 30 years, okay, and he's gone into the examination room with patients, and he's used religion to help them with their therapy for 30 years. What kind of situation is that guy in when people want to come out and start talking to him about, whether or not Jesus is the Son of God? What kind of position is he in?
Yeah, and it's also sort of like, this is what the AA has been doing for a long time, and the AA gets a lot of crap for it.
Totally.
Like, the science is there. Like, the reason they use it is because when you have this system of value, exactly, you're able to pull yourself out and psychologically because you embrace something larger than yourself. And the best way of doing that.
You might want to up your bandwidth, pragmatic, or Joe. You're fading in and out. Gary,
yeah.
You have an opinion on the social intuitionist model and Jordan Peterson's. I mean, it would be, for me, it would be like if he's going into therapy with patients and using whatever works.
Yeah, there's the question. Yeah, the question will arise: well, why does it work? There'll be interpretive issues as well. You know, how he interprets it, but that's fine. That happens. That's part of the way human thought progresses. People apply things. Some things work. Some things don't. You try to make sense of that. You know, people come up with ideas for that. You test them. You move forward. That's great. What's lacking, I think, in a lot of the hysterical reaction to Peterson is people say he's wrong, and then they'll point to something somebody misquoted him or cut a misquote in the Washington Post, instead of going, right, this is being charitable, this is what Peterson means, this is why he's wrong. And you can do that. You can challenge him on things like truth. Yeah, there are things he says that are just as postmodern in their spirit as the SJWs he criticizes. Yeah, then you can pull him up on that and you can discuss that. But people are having fits, and they're, unsurprisingly, of course, falling into tribalism about it. You know, and it's wise. A part of the Enlightenment upgrade to our religious tribal intuitions or passions or instincts is a part that counteracts that a little bit, and you belong to the tribe of critical thinkers, and you belong to the tribe of people who try and understand arguments. That's where your passion lies, rather than just showing, you know, just doing down the enemy and making them look like a goof in front of all your friends, rather than that tribe.
Yeah. Well, I'm truly interested. I mean, when you're talking about the truth thing, you're talking about the first Sam Harris Jordan Peterson debate, and I am legitimately interested because he poses a question that there is some kind of empirical answer to. I mean, and if you look at like Matt Dillahunty and Sam Harris's moral system, their secular humanist system, they're saying that truth is the highest moral value and human flourishing is the highest moral value. But what Peterson is,
that could do with some philosophy. That could do with some philosophy as to the nature of truth. There's discussions as to the nature of truth. Whether, for example, there's meta-verification and verificational theories of truth. Verificational theories of how do you verify? Is it correspondence, coherence, or is it adherentism, or, as in Peterson's case, is it some kind of pragmatic criteria? And if it's pragmatic criteria, what pragmatic criteria is you know, what other works in what way make something true? You know, these are
he would say that it's Peterson would say that it's tested by the Darwinian frame, that survival is the only ultimate test of truth. That's how he gets the pragmatic frame.
But then you can go, okay, but what's being tested? You know, again, it's your interpretation of works. You can say works as in you end up with you end up alive and reproducing if you believe it. But is that good enough? There are philosophical positions that that's not good enough.
Well, this is the question, though, because the question is really, does factual reality, does truth, as Sam Harris would describe it, come at the expense of human flourishing? And that is an empirical question.
I think you could even take it a step further, though, in terms of what you mean by human flourishing and how you can intend to prove it, because there's other data that Christians, in particular in the U.S., and this is Pew data, but I only know it in terms of Christians, is that Christian families reportedly report higher levels of self-report higher levels of happiness. They give a larger portion of their income to charities, and there's all these little individual metrics that one could describe for human flourishing that is better achieved under Christianity and possibly other religions I don't happen to know, but then they would under just a pure secularist mindset.
That'd be one interpretation of the pragmatic success of account of truth. And there'd be other ones as well. I mean, look, you know what Peterson sounds like sometimes? You know, Richard Rorty didn't, when he said that truth is just what your peers let you get away with. Yeah.
That's true enough, right?
Yeah, that's a very pragmatic post. Rorty's like the arch for Americans. Rorty's like the arch postmodernist. Well, if Peterson's saying something like, truth is just what your peers let you survive if you say. Yeah. They'll let you live if you say this, therefore it's true. That doesn't seem quite adequate to the concept of truth, does it? It doesn't to me. But it sounds awfully postmodern as well. So is Peterson that radically distinct from the people he's supposed to be set against, or is he just some kind of Rortian pragmatist?
Are you familiar with Brett Weinstein's metaphorical truth?
I'm familiar with the term. I think I watched the video. That raises all kinds of questions, again, philosophical questions as to the nature of truth. Can truth be metaphorical? What is truth? What is the nature of truth?
Well, it's very clear, though. It's a very empirical rubric that he places around it. He's saying that if you believe something untrue, scientifically untrue, that believing that thing and behaving as if it was true, if that is better for your survival and reproduction over time, that metaphorical truth is what your genes will select.
This comes down to whether truth is either identical with reality or is a correspondence relation to reality, or whether it's something else. You see, what are we developing when we develop a respect for truth? What are we developing? Are we developing a picture of the world as it really is, as a noumenal picture, or are we developing certain virtues of inquiry, like a respect for evidence?
When you say we, what exactly do you mean? Because different communities
believe things. People with a part of our psychological makeup is belief, and we act on our beliefs and our desires. Now, obviously, if you believe something if your beliefs work, because beliefs work like they function like predictions, like subjective predictions.
Sure.
My belief that it's going to be sunny today is it has the form of a predictive probability. I think it's going to be sunny today. Probably the sun's going to be out all day. Yeah. If your beliefs are accurate, those predictions are accurate, clearly that's going to help you stay alive. But what in developing respect for truth are we developing a picture of the world, or are we or are we trying to improve our means of having accurate beliefs of things happening 7 times? If we say something's going to happen 7 times out of 10 and it happens 7 times out of 10 rather than 8 or 6, we've developed a way of that means it's true, but the grounds we have for claiming that, which is where the work needs to be done. So the pragmatism is using approaches that work, that give us accurate predictions. It's not that we have a totalized picture of the world, metaphorical or otherwise. It's that we develop certain virtues. We've cultivated certain epistemic virtues and we're committed to them. So it's normative. So epistemology is normative in a sense.
The big divide that I have, and I agree with what you're saying, but there is the level of society and then there is the level of the individual. And I think at the level of society, I completely agree with you that we should be searching for that accurate truth, scientific truth. But at the level of the individual, if you can live a more meaningful life by striving for metaphorical truth, there's an argument to be made for metaphorical truth.
Well, is it truth though? Or I mean, is that a virtue though, or could it be a blinding vice? Could you say, the by racial superiority and the German Volk and the despicable low nature of the Jew. You know, that's my metaphorical truth.
Doesn't it depend upon what the truth is though? Because like I'm at the point where like I read a lot of different stuff in evolutionary biology and evolutionary psychology and just all kinds of stuff. And I don't know if you know about the test with I believe it's actually under the field of game theory where they tested out various programs to find like the most process.
Yeah, tit for tat.
Yeah, tit for tat. Okay, so the winning program is not actually tit for tat. It's generous tit for tat because in a tit for tat struggle, mistakes happen. People accidentally hurt one another, and you can get this like this tit for tat warfare that unless somebody is willing to forgive, like it can bring society down. Now that meme maps up very nicely onto the highest value in Christianity, which is forgiveness. So I just think like when you're talking about metaphorical truth, I think innately, biologically, I think the truth that we all have inside us is get even, revenge. But overriding that truth with metaphorical truth, which is forgiveness, I think can be better at a societal level.
Well, there's carry on. Sorry, pragmatic.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like one of the things, the guy who did the tit for tat study and a couple others, because he's big in game theory.
Yeah, he's huge.
Did us. I have studies by him, but I can't think of his name off the top of my head. One of the things he's also done research into is simulations about survival and how certain groups flourish. And one of the things that he's shown is that it's really not a huge deal if you as an individual aren't doing particularly well in your survival. Say if you don't have a low number of kids, what's the biggest indicator is if you have a higher number of grandchildren. And I think where that starts to play in is that it requires a larger level of sacrifice. It almost requires giving up the metaphorical truth to the individual to like sort of focus on some greater level of truth. And so if you try to, I think you almost need metaphorical truth for the society in that sense, because you need to instill the most effective survival strategies on a whole group level, because the group is what enables the individual to survive best. Even if you have some sort of outliers who are doing extremely well or extremely poorly, on average, it'll help the most people do the best. And so you really almost need metaphorical truth for the entire Volk or people.
Well, you're a theist, so you would say that. I mean,
I suppose so.
Nicely done. I do admire.
Is it true or beautiful? I mean, and they're not. Sorry, romantic poets, but they're not necessarily the same thing.
Totally. And not only that, like I understand you wanting to make that argument, and I think maybe the society would be happier, and maybe Jordan Peterson is right, and maybe Sam Harris is right, and like we're going to have to secede our world dominance to the artificial intelligence, and that's where the search for ultimate truth ends. But I think, I mean, we have to take the gamble. We have to follow the ultimate truth at the society level.
So but we have an understanding of what we are because our science is advancing. This beginning understanding, and we can use that to do what we do better. We can take apart what it is we have to do when we have to understand the world to make it to live in it and successfully, and to live in, to have better lives. And this thing, I'm just being totally enlightenment here. Enlightenment, 18th century enlightenment.
Did you read Steven Pinker's book?
I have, yes.
What did you think of the last chapter? Because I was like cringing all the way through it. I think I might be like
what was that? Remind me what the last chapter was.
Well, the last chapter, I felt like he was just going full liberal. Like I felt like he was just.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, it is. You know, maybe. Yeah, you could make that criticism. He hasn't quite. He's taken a very optimistic view. He's overly optimistic. Perhaps that's a criticism you could make of Pinker's view. Yes, but my point is that we correct that we are in a position where we're beginning to understand our place in the world, and that's useful because we can work out what we're doing, and we can what's good and what's bad and how to do it better. That does offer some opportunities for that. Now, of course, you can discuss this, whether this can be the case. You can discuss the is or gap. You can discuss sort of like and Moore's arguments as well. But this again is why you need to do philosophy. But I think you can answer those objections, and if you can, then yeah, we're in a position now where we realise that okay, this is the way we believe things. This respect for truth is a useful virtue. How do we hone our skills and make better use of it? Now, I'm not sure that metaphorical truth, talking of metaphorical truth, is useful for that, because metaphors are very broad by their very nature, and you start to talk about things that as truths that aren't really truths, or don't meet the best criteria, the criteria for verification that we have for testing things.
But that's why he calls it metaphorical truth, though. Because they aren't scientific yet. I have another super chat I should read before I forget. Ausyarr for $2 says 3 white cis sheets. I don't know.
I think it's cis head.
Cis heads.
Cis het males or something, I think.
Oh, cis hetero males. Yeah. 3 white cis heterosexual males. All I need to know. Exactly. That's it. This is like a full on Nazi live stream here.
Yeah, there's your metaphorical truth. You see, his metaphor extends over
you're misunderstanding metaphorical truth, Gary. Seriously, but Brett Weinstein.
You can't challenge his metaphor.
No. The metaphorical truth does not change. The metaphorical truth is if you believe something. And I guess what you're saying is that something could be different for everyone, but
it could, or it could be false. You could believe if you believe something.
No. With metaphorical truth, it is false.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go. There's the problem. Because
metaphorical truth is about it being false.
Your selection, a selection of metaphors, a free choice, a smorgasbord of metaphors for the person to choose as they wish, isn't sufficiently good verification. It might not ward off errors of thought, like errors of assumption or confusion or formal errors of, it might not pay sufficient respect to the demands of evidentialism.
It seems like an axiomatic part of your thinking, Gary, is that truth, factual truth, scientific truth, whatever you want to call it, Sam Harris truth, is at the highest value simply because it is.
It's not simply because it is. It is ultimately because it keeps us alive, and it is ultimately.
But that is citation.
It does so.
Citation needed, Gary.
Yeah, I would chime in there as well, because I think you could very much argue that what is untrue keeps us alive far better than what is true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're making an axiomatic assumption, Gary, without evidence. I'm sorry, as an empiricist, I have to step in here.
I've got 300 years of evidence. Where do you want to?
What? Oh my God!
Hold on. Let's hear this out. Let's hear it out.
Medicine. William Clifford. Science that works. Putting things on the moon. Hell,
see, but that just makes us live longer. It doesn't make us live better.
It does in terms of health. You live longer, and you're not going to be, you're not coughing up blood and being poisoned by your own teeth for the majority of that life.
I'm still making the divide here, okay? Where I'm saying that at the societal level you are correct, but at the individual level you are perhaps not correct. And there are plenty of.
What's the division between the individual and society?
Well, there are plenty of people who have believed in metaphorical truth, like Mendel and his pea pods basically uncovered genetics. So, I mean, scientific discovery, the search for ultimate truth was being done at the same time.
But it wasn't revealed to him as part of his religious vision. or his religious cause.
No,
Yeah,
and
but
nobody's saying that either, Gary.
Well, there you go. There's that's where I'm putting the emphasis for truth on deference to reason or deference to cogent argument.
Yeah, but
I think that's a necessary
and-
condition for truth.
but you're switching lenses when you're taking an axiomatic assumption and you're switching back and forth from the societal lens to the individual lens.
It's not axiomatic. It's not something that I'll just take as read. It's something that I think that emerges out of familiarity with the history of, say, science itself, the philosophy of science, the philosophical history of science, and just general kind of how our capacity to reflect critically on things. If we end
up in the Terminator situation, can you still make the argument that the science was a good thing? If we end up in a Matrix situation subjugated to
here's the distinction.
I'm just curious. I'm not saying
it's not a good thing if we're all over, with the minions, the slaves of the machines. That's not a good thing. But the concern of science, the concern with science as a respect for truth, as a means to truth, and we'll put aside the sort of scientism is that science the only means of truth. Just put that aside for a moment. So if we take science as a means to truth, its virtue is that it yields truths, it yields accurate predictions and good explanations. Its virtue isn't to be judged on whether it leads to horrific outcomes or beautiful outcomes. Its virtue is in that it tells us what it makes us think better. It allows us to learn how to think better.
Citation needed.
Hume
disagrees with you, Gary.
Well, no, I think the distinction there is like it teaches us how to think. First off, I could say that there are plenty of other rationalists, and I mean pure rationalists, not just the people who embrace like the little bit of rationalism, a little bit of empiricism, that could teach you how to think far better than, say, somebody like a Sam Harris could, because they're more learned on the subjects of particular logics and particular.
But Sam Harris doesn't do philosophy, so Sam Harris doesn't know. Sam Harris hasn't got the depth of understanding of philosophy to be able to pass judgment, to be honest with you.
Are you capping on Sam Harris? Gary.
No, but I've said it. I mean it. If you're gonna diss philosophy, and then he's going to turn around and say, "Oh well, I'm going to be talking about truth, and I'm going to pass judgment on truth." Then no, you're outside your field, Harris.
Yeah, Harris.
Yeah, no, I think it's the case with both Peterson and with Harris. They're both outside of their field when they talk about philosophy.
Sure. I think most philosophers would agree with you. And
Harris has a degree in philosophy. I mean, to his credit, I believe he has a PhD in philosophy.
Honestly, he could something like The Moral Landscape and just totally, an undergrad could see what the problem with that is.
The worst book ever written.
Well, it's not the worst book ever written, but it's just like, it's naivety.
It's in the running
in terms of meta ethics and ethical issues. It's just staggering. Now, I know you might disagree with pragmatic, but you can be a naturalist and have a sound moral, a meta ethic and a sound normative view of ethics. You don't need God or anything for morality. But that's, I don't think so, and I can make a philosophical case for that. But what Harris does, Harris doesn't make a philosophical case. People like Harris just turn around and diss philosophy, and then just bumble into doing it badly. March bravely and doing it badly.
Harris is all about trying to like flout the is-ought gap and trying to fudge like causality and all its things, because he has this weird particle metaphysic about him, and he's essentially a determinist. And so it's a lot of his claims are so incredibly muddied, like especially when it comes to talking about truth, because if you're this sort of determinist, which Harris is, I mean, I remember reading some of his free will stuff. It's hard to even come up with a cogent definition of truth, because you just believe that particles cause other particles to go in other directions. You just believe actions cause actions.
Sure.
And so there is no truth. There is just like the reality unfolding in front of us. Like truth is a meaningless concept if we're all just being guided by external forces that we have no control over.
There's a normative element to epistemology. And if you're a total determinist, you can't really, if you're a total determinist, then you can't really supply that normative aspect of epistemology.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is basic philosophy, and this, if you don't diss philosophy and you engage with it, you could have come up with a good answers for that. He could have come up with a account. He could have realized it was a problem for his very strict determinism, and you have to come up with some kind of naturalistic solution to that. Which is an interesting debate to have, and it's more fruitful than publishing a book that's half baked.
If you know Haidt's work, Sam Harris's book just completely screams liberal morality. It's almost like he doesn't even really know it. The Cult of the Lich for 125 PHP says, "Wait, I can't let this slight against Dillahunty in the chat stand. He's wrong on many things, but he is demonstrably an honest actor." And I didn't see the thing that's a response to, but I completely believe Matt Dillahunty is an honest actor. I don't think he knows like a lick about morality or ethical systems or whatever you want to call them, but I think Matt Dillahunty is still a preacher. He just switched religion.
Yeah, the thing is, you can be both. You can be a preacher and an honest actor.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, I think preachers are most definitely honest actors.
Yeah, you can. If he's an honest actor and he's open to reason and evidence and considering a position, then obviously.
Oh well, you don't know Dillahunty then, because he's not open to reason and evidence. He's just
sort of vaguely aware. Look, I kind of cut my interest in atheism when it on the internet, when it sort of degenerated into what Ausyarr calls lacktheism, the lack of belief, as if and that's when it became weak, and it it's opened itself up to these kind of criticisms that you're making now, and it also opened itself up to colonization by the SJW crowd.
Yeah, big time. They took it straight over.
It's like, if you're not gonna, if you're just gonna say, oh, my atheism is a lack of belief, and I'm just gonna make a virtue out of not having to make my argument for my position, then you're in trouble, and they're the trouble's caught up with them, basically.
I didn't mention, but I was arguing at the same time in the same thread with Jake of Hugo and Jake, and Jake actually was asking me interesting questions, and we got. It seemed like we were actually having an honest dialogue there for a minute. It's impossible to tell, but the reason I bring it up is they always want to bring it back to the God question. And I don't understand that, because I'm like, that's the last thing that I'm interested in talking about.
Yeah, you do feel you're being punished for sounding like you might not have a lack of belief in God anymore.
Maybe. I mean,
yeah, that's because that's the article of the fate, isn't it?
Do I have to bend down and kiss the ring of Sam Harris or something? Like, how does this work? I'm not, like, is atheism the new? I mean, it's funny. It's hilarious.
Because what about naturalistic theology? What about studying God as a natural phenomena? Do you believe in that God or not? Do you have to lack belief in? So is it? When anti-theists say, I lack a belief in God, is the God that they lack a belief in this supreme creator deity, this philosopher's God? And as that perhaps suffered concept creep, and it's become, well, you can't even believe in the anthropologist's God. The God is a useful social fiction.
Yeah, totally. So I guess
because that's what it seems like it's happened to me.
Totally.
It's like,
that's right on the money.
No.
Yeah, right on the money. So say that one more time. So you can't really even believe in
it starts off as you have to lack a belief in the philosopher's God, the supreme creator deity,
right, the sky daddy.
The sky daddy, yeah, the ultimate,
the unmoved moving
being, the unmoved mover, all of that, yeah, the absolute metaphysical God. You have to lack a belief in that. That's your badge of membership. But that's kind of suffered concept creep, and it's gone over to you can't believe in the anthropologist's God either. You can't believe in the God that as a useful social fiction.
Yeah, metaphorical truth. You can't believe in the metaphorical truth.
I have a problem with metaphorical truth. To be honest with you, it confuses me.
It's all he's saying is the same thing that you're saying when you say useful fiction. All he's saying is the same thing.
Yeah.
Metaphorical truth is a useful fiction. So
yeah, I can see, but it's this again. It's this bond between truth and reality, even if it's not constitutive of truth, which I don't think it is. I'm not a correspondence theorist or
even on the anthropological.
Even if the truth is our best place to put reality, even if it's the other way around, even if we're Jungian about this, and what is true is the best place to put what we believe is real, and we have to believe something is real to live. If we were thoroughgoing skeptics, we'd be dead within a day. Think about it.
Yeah, totally.
Yes. There was that. It reminds me of that story. There was the ancient Greek skeptic who believed that everything around him was just fraud or just a vision or something, and so he'd walk towards cliffs, and because he didn't know whether or not they were really there, and his students would kind of have to just bump him away from the cliffs as he was walking to avoid him falling off the cliff, because they were not quite as skeptical as he and such. Because true skepticism, like, you can go over like what Descartes went through, you can go back to the ancients. It's just not a tenable worldview, because you end up questioning things that we have reasonable enough proof to believe in.
Sure. I mean, ancient skeptics were of a different breed to modern skeptics. Descartes, early modern, it was a different conception in ancient Greece and but yeah, you're right. Essentially, you're right. We have the reality is necessary for life, for practical life, and even if truth isn't correspondence with reality, truth is still the best place to put reality. If things that we've thought about when we've got time to think, when we're in training mode rather than employment mode, when we're in our system 1 rather than system 2 thinking mode, if we can think about things and learn about them and build models in that way, when it comes to thinking what's real, it's best to put it where the truth says it is, which in my view would be the natural sciences.
Well, I think it becomes an argument about what is the world to some extent, because obviously we can say the world is to some extent the natural world, but how do you derive from the natural world, say, something along the lines of saying murder is wrong or theft is wrong? I think it's something that a materialist worldview lacks to some extent, and which is why I think you do need at least some sort of access to a world of forms, for a lack of better term right now, but accepting reality beyond the physical.
Sure, and that's an argument we could have. That's a live issue, of course.
Yes.
But my point is, truth and reality have a relationship, and truth seems to be the best place to put reality. But if I'm confused by this idea of metaphorical truth, am I doing justice? Does it stop me if I adopt a metaphorical account of truth, does it stop me doing justice to the principles and the epistemic methods by which I establish truth in my that's the issue that I have. I think it's probably the issue that other people like Jeff have with the idea of metaphorical truth. Well, are we just accepting anything now as verification?
I would say that the advantage that different religions have is that they've been through like an iterated design process. So if you accept metaphorical truths that have been tested over a long period of time and winnowed by natural selection, then you're better off than just like.
What about iPhones or the sort of the tech in our life now? When you get an app and it gets upgrades and things get better, what if we've had a major upgrade in the last? What if we've had a major upgrade in the last couple of hundred years that integrate both these religious instincts, as you call them, but they've got this super facility now, which is called reason and critical thinking, that can stop some of the malfunctions in the earlier version. The earlier version was a bit genocide-y, a bit sort of like chopping bits off Bimini. You know, those earlier beta versions.
It's a bit genocide-y. I like that.
But we've got something now that's sort of stabilized.
Don't you think we have updated though for the little bit genocide-y?
Well, they're still in there. It's still in there, obviously.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I think you're going to run into a problem in...
Sorry, pragmatic. We don't have a perfect creator deity. We're the product of a blind natural process of selection. So, you know, obviously it's still in there. But there's this patch now where we can sort of counteract that a little better than we could be before, because you know, we sort of like, we've got, but if we actually talk to people, we don't just deplatform or shut them down or try and get them in the sack for saying things. We actually engage their arguments, and then we can dismiss them on the basis of their arguments rather than they're just, you know, being in the wrong tribe. That's actually better, you know. And that's,
you don't know how Twitter works, Gary.
Well, that is how Twitter works. You know, that's, yeah. We've delved back into the operating system. We've into the machine code of human nature with Twitter. Twitter has burrowed into the basic mechanics of our programming, and it's not a nice picture.
It's so bad.
Well, I think you're probably going to run into a problem in at least sometime in the near future. Well, not the near future, but in the future, because what we used to have, humans didn't need to be genocide-y once upon a time. We sort of had nature to do that for us. We had the Black Death, and we
didn't get the opportunity. We didn't get the opportunity to be genocidal. Nature did it to us for us.
Yeah, and I think that's like sort of the worst part about civilization, perhaps, is that now that we have longer lifespans, we're the ones who need to kind of do the culling ourselves, and we kind of have to rest with the morality of that to some extent.
Sure. That's it. Well, this is the thing. Yeah. I mean, look, it's like if people didn't get old, cancer and dementia and things like that are diseases caused by medical success. This is something that's been realized.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Diseases of old age are diseases that exist because of people, kept diseases that killed people when they were younger away.
So you never answered my question, Gary, about where the truth, the scientific endeavor leads. Like, does the outcome of that scientific endeavor make a difference to whether or not that is the most valuable goal?
Okay, this is where we get into the question of naturalized metaethics. It plays a role. It can play a role, I believe. People will disagree with me on this, but I believe it can play a role in informing our moral views. It can't exhaust them, because in being human, we're not just doing science. We're not just testing our beliefs. We're also always reevaluating our values. And science isn't always the best. Well, it isn't just a particularly good way of doing that. That's why you need things like art.
I don't think you understand the question that I'm asking. I'm saying that you're making I feel kind of an axiomatic assumption that factual truth, scientific truth, you know, what the scientific method turns out, the quest for knowledge, for factual knowledge.
Yeah.
That goal that you're placing as the highest goal is leading us down a path, and that path leads to paradise or ruin.
No.
Does it? Well, how does it not? How does it not lead to paradise or ruin?
Okay.
I mean, sooner or later, we're going to figure out human aging. Like, theoretically, we're all going.
But possibly, yeah, possibly. Okay, it's this thing of what we are. Okay, of what we are as humans. What are we? I don't think we're simple beings. I think we're complicated. I don't think we're just
you're Jordan Peterson in me here, Gary.
Yeah, I know. This is true, because he doesn't just
you're
talk
Jordan Peterson. What do you have on the line? We know what Jordan Peterson has on the line. What do you have on the line, Gary? Why aren't you answering yes or no?
Okay, my answer would be no, but it'd be no because And you want to know what the because is?
Yeah, hell yeah. I'm pins and needles over here.
Okay. Part of what we do is we believe. Yeah, we're partly driven by belief and we're partly driven by desire. Yeah, we see the world in terms of likelihoods and probabilities. We also view it in terms of utilities of goodness and badness, good outcomes and bad outcomes. Yeah,
and you're talking Jordan Peterson. This is maps of meaning all the way.
Yeah, this is why he says it's complete bullshit. This is why I'm not a Peterson hater. I've listened to the guy and I've digested what he says. I've made my own intelligent view of what is right and wrong. I haven't just joined a tribe to hate him. I don't do that. I'm that kind of person. Okay, so yeah, there's the part of what we do that is belief. Science, I believe, is our best way of doing it. It's our best upgrade on that. What we've got to do that, because it's not. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's our best upgrade on that. But it's not all we do. We're not rational calculating machines. We're also creatures of passion and value and evaluation, and and that side can be informed by the science, just like a jury can be informed by facts about its verdicts. But ultimately, that side is more passionate, and we got other things that art is better for that. For example, art is very good at making us question our values.
My question though is if factual reality is the highest virtue and it leads.
It's not though. No, it's not. No, look, science is the highest epistemic virtue. It's a set of epistemic virtues, and their virtues are local. Virtues aren't principles. They're not universalized. They're more universal. They're more localized. Part of what we do is believing things. And for that purpose, scientific epistemology really works well. But for other things we do, it isn't the right tool. It's
terrible.
It's not a virtue. It's not a virtue for if you've got a grand picture of society. And this is where postmodernism is actually correct. You can't.
Oh, you sinner. You sinner.
I'm just saying it like it is. It does have a point that modernism went too far in thinking that if you have a rational picture, and you just pursue it doggedly enough, the world will be a utopia. That's not true. Because there's other things that we have to do as human beings, and though they can be informed by the scientific picture, they're not exhausted by it. Yeah. And that's and I think the problem with the question you were asking was that will it end in a utopia?
You're making my argument that I made a minute ago.
This is the misunderstanding. I thought you were saying that. To me, it sounded like you're conflating the picture of outcomes with a picture of epistemic virtues, like it's the ultimate virtue. It's not an ultimate virtue. It's not ultimate or universal or absolute. It refers to a certain part of what we are in our humanity. It's the virtue for that. It's the good in that aspect. But it shouldn't be expanded to be the virtue or the good in every aspect of humanity.
How is that different than what I'm saying about
it isn't
society-wise, it's the highest virtue?
It isn't. I just misunderstood what you're saying. When you're saying highest virtue, to me it sounds. I'm not saying that science should be our guide to politics and religion and everything, and science over Alice, and it's all up there and it's perfect. Worship the science gods. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying that. I'm being more circumspect than that.
Let me make another statement here. So I honestly think that science is the highest societal value, whether we want it to be or not. And I think the argument that Jordan Peterson is making, which you can't really, how do you stop the science train? He's saying that right now, society-wise, the search for factual truth, scientific truth, is the highest virtue that our society strives for. And if that leads to ruin, what cosmologists call the great filter, some catastrophic event that snuffs human life out, then obviously placing that science as the highest virtue was a mistake.
Yeah, that's respect for truth. Deference to cogent argument is a virtue that has good social consequences, I would say. It tackles hypocrisy and conceit, which are the real enemies. The real enemies is left or right. It's all of us have a capacity for hypocrisy and conceit, and the virtues of good epistemology counteract that, and therefore they're a good, they're a social good, but they're not the ultimate value. They're not all we do. We need to embrace other parts of what we are as well, and make use of those.
Joe, you want to say something?
Yeah. Well, I think it was a very good point that you made, that right now we're sort of suing science and rationality, quote unquote, to a seemingly unhealthy end. And it very much reminded me of the maps of meaning, or the portion of maps of meaning that Jordan talks about at the very beginning. It's the section on where he's talking about alchemy and what the early alchemists did. And really what that was it was a little bit of science, a little bit of theology, and a little bit of philosophy. And it was sort of this unison of these three things, like the spiritual, the physical, and like the mind, so to speak, sort of representing like the mind, body, spirit trinity that was thought of in medieval times. And I think one of the things that you're talking about, and that Jordan Peterson continues to talk about, is that we've sort of advanced the technological part, like the physical and material part of that alchemy forward, without stopping to consider the philosophical implications or the greater moral implications themselves. And I think that's also, to sort of bring it back, what Jeff is kind of missing in that whole string of tweets. He's talking about science as this sort of God, as Gary thought you were talking about it, where it should be our guiding light for literally everything we do. And I think people like Jeff get a little bit nervous when Jordan Peterson talks about, well, no, you have to have some sort of moral grounding, and you have to have more to life than just science and scientism. And I think that's sort of what people get nervous about when Jordan Peterson speaks.
Jordan Peterson is a paleoconservative postmodernist. He's not a neo-Marxist postmodernist. He's a paleoconservative.
Nobody knows what that means, Gary. Please translate.
Conservatives are people who want to conserve ancient ancient ideas of good, sort of like paleo as in paleontology, digging up dinosaur bones and stuff. They want to dig down into history, find the ancient goods, and preserve them against the modernist scientific picture. So he's a paleoconservative postmodernist, not a neo-Marxist postmodernist, a paleoconservative one.
I'll see you your paleoconservative bid and raise you a neo-reactionary claim, because I've also heard him referred to. Now, like, paleoconservative is one thing. Like, you got people like Pat Buchanan, who are described as sort of paleoconservative, and they're, you know, very traditional, seeking to uphold ancient ways and such. But then you have, and I only know this because I'm involved in weird dissident right Twitter, is like you have the neo-reactionaries, which is more along the lines of old school sort of phalangist, pseudo-fascist, and even monarchist tendencies. And I've heard Peterson referred to as such only because he actually references some, not fascists themselves, but people who follow fascists and their writings. There's a fellow on Twitter, DSA Rodin, who has a good little graphic about Peterson and how he quotes a certain, I believe it was a certain French guy, or no, Romanian guy, Cordanu or something like that, and how he was a member of some Romanian fascist faction. So there is certainly an element of really old traditionalism and imbibing sort of this old standard that you can kind of get from Peterson. And I'm sure that scares people too.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that's it. And it is postmodern as well, because he's making these criticisms of the Enlightenment model at the same time he's doing it. So that's a valid criticism. That's an interesting idea. Why don't people do that rather than just calling him names and trying to make him out to be some kind of wife beater or something?
I don't think people understand him. I think people they get, so a friend tells them about Jordan Peterson, and you know, all of their biases are piled onto this.
Yeah, it comes there's a Twitter tribe, isn't there? You subscribe to certain feeds, you don't subscribe to others, so your bubble becomes that, and there's definitely an element of that.
So I have three super chats, and I have a Jeff Holiday update. So Jeff Holiday started a stream, a live stream called Quiplash: The Harsh, Cold Reality of Mathematics. I don't know if that's aimed at us, but I want everyone to know that I have absolutely no hard feelings towards Jeff Holiday. I'm not butthurt. Like, Jeff Holiday unfollowed me, I unfollowed him. That's fine if he doesn't want to see my tweets. And Twitter is a really weird thing where if you can't mute someone that you're actually following. which is super uncomfortable because
it doesn't count unless you can express it in algebra.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the super chats are Popog for $2 says, I, for one, welcome our future robot overlords. I just hope, like, I don't know, my cat has a pretty easygoing life. You know, I pay for the food, I put the water out, that kind of stuff. If they're gonna clip me, I'm a little nervous. But, like, if I end up in a little box carrier going to the vet, I think I'm gonna shit my pants. But
no, it'll all be done in such a super intelligent way that you won't realize it's being done to you. A bit like capitalism.
So Prospero 058 for $9.99 says, can epistemological truth be the master of the realm of science and metaphorical truth in the realm of art? A check and balance system. Yeah. And that is, hold on, that is exactly kind of what I am saying, that on an individual level, I think we kind of are forced to use metaphorical truth. And I think, go ahead, Gary. I have another super chat when you're done.
Semantic issue, but it's truth. It's calling it metaphorical truth. Truth is that semantic. The choice of that word wise, or might it be confusing? You know, we could have things that are beautiful and useful ideas. We can have ideas that are beautiful and useful and that have served a function. But does it undermine epistemic truth to use the word truth to refer to those?
Well, it's just a term.
Muddy the waters a little bit. That's what the issue is. I think it's the muddying of the waters.
But we're in muddy water already.
Yeah, but we aspire to swim to clarity. It's the eternal human swim to clear water.
I think we're in a mudslinging war here, Gary. I don't know.
I haven't been keeping. I've only seen flashes, distant reports, and flashes over the horizon on Twitter. But I know there's something going on that's not nice.
Twitter is a necessary evil in my life, which I. So, Cold of the Lich for 125 PHP says Paleo was created in a direct response to Marxist cultural subversion. Watch Yuri Benzimov, Subversion and Overlap, that will list the paleo principles. Is that the guy who is the Russian spy?
Yeah, he was the defector from the Soviet Union who came over, and it's very good. It's very enlightening.
That stuff's been standard. That stuff's been around since Gramsci. It's since the 20s, like in response to Italian fascism. So he didn't think it up. But yeah, that's the long march to the institutions and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. Although that wasn't Gramsci's phrase. That was some guy in Germany in 1968. But yeah, that kind of like thing is. And paleo will, of course, react to that. Paleos will, of course, react to that, and they do. And I think Peterson is part of that as well. Yeah, part of that reaction as well, which is fine. You acknowledge that, and then you make your case. But you can't just have two camps, paleo conservatives and neo Marxists, just slinging shit at each other and sort of trying to get each other the sack and talk. That's not
as long as things don't get a little genocide-y. I think we
can. Bit genocide-y. Yeah.
So both of you guys can, while I have you here, you can both testify to the fact that I'm a rational, empirical individual, that I'm not appealing to Peterson as my cult leader, and I'm not a secret theist.
You need to ask Jeff why he thinks. I don't know of the background here. I've just come into this because I was late. I was lazy, and I'm supposed to be ready to go to work, but I'm not doing that at the moment. I'm to you. I'm like, I don't know the background to this, but you just.
I don't either. I'm lost.
Yeah. Why does he think this is? Why is this? Is it because you perhaps people thinking, well, a friend is just starting up drama. He's just doing it for the drama, and he's being provocative, and he's.
Do I seem like a drama YouTuber to you?
You like it. I can tell you like it.
Okay, I love drama if it's gonna teach us something. Like we're talking about.
I don't think it's your distal aim. I think it's a proximate aim of yours is drama, but your distal aim, I think, is rational inquiry. Yeah, which is good.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
But you enjoy
edgy.
that process of really stirring the pot. Like you enjoy giving it a good stir.
One of the most interesting things, and I think this is one of the reasons why I am a total height person, is before I encountered height, I was deep in the liberal bubble. And I was living in the matrix, and I didn't realize I was living in the matrix. But once you make it out of the matrix, like, it's so much fun to look at people who are still in the matrix. Because it's almost like a superpower to be able to see, people's thinking
and you know what they're going to do before they do it.
Yeah, kind of.
It's a predictive accuracy thing again. Yeah, I know
it is.
I mean, I have to say, two things that changed my mind on politics and made me realize something was happening. One of them was Gamergate, and the other one was Haid's book.
Yeah, totally. The Scott, I just uploaded on Think Club a clip from now I'm spaced. Scott Adams' book. Scott Adams talks about these filters that we use on the world, and the most important aspect of a filter is that it makes you happy and that it can predict the future. And Haid's model just kills it on both those accounts. So Scott Adams is a pretty red-pilled neo kind of guy. So
yeah, I think both people who are woke on the left and red-pilled on the right, it's a result of a cultural change. The culture has changed because of economic circumstances, and just because different generational and technological changes have come. These are the usual indicators of cultural change. They always have been, and yeah, that's what it is. I don't think it's really like stepping outside the matrix or anything like that. What it is, it's a cultural change, and there's a reinvestment in meaningful narrative. There's a reinvestment in meaningful narrative that's happening. Previously, the late 20th century and so forth, it was like, you'd be kind of like you'd be fashionably disconnected and ironic, and things wouldn't be real and everything would be ironic. And it was all part of that kind of, like, we've got past the meta-narrative, postmodern kind of thing. People have reconnected with meaning now, both on the left and on the right. And that's what the cultural change is. And
who do you think is woke on the left?
Well, they all think they're woke. Their idea
no, but they all seem like they're copper tops. They're matrix people.
No, but they think they're woke because they've seen through the facade of the capitalist system.
Yeah, but they're
hierarchical system of oppression, and they've seen the systems and the mechanisms that the veil has been pulled aside, and they're seeing the wheels of oppression.
Which is a more dangerous metaphorical truth,
and that's their wokeness. Whereas people who have been red-pilled have stepped out of the matrix, and they see that everybody's been led astray by this neoliberal, globalist, cosmopolitan, liberal worldview. It's similar in form, different content, of course, because it's right and left, but it's similar in form. Everybody, both of them share the view that they've been lied to, or they've seen through the lie. They've left the Platonic cave. They all have that aspect to them. But what characterizes them both is that it's a re-engagement with meta-narrative. They're both the meta-narrative that transcends the apparent and gives meaning to your life. It's quite theistic, really. You should be quite happy, pragmatic. Your side's actually winning.
You want to say something, Joe?
Oh no, I was gonna just chime in and say I totally blanked. Never mind.
Prospero 058 for 499 says, "How about metaphorical accessibility to truth through art?" Would that be a decent qualifier, or am I completely off?
No, again, it's the same confusion. No, there's nothing wrong with beauty. Beauty isn't the poor cousin, isn't the embarrassing country cousin of truth. Yeah, beauty is a thing to be pursued and valued in itself.
Yeah, wisdom.
It's part of wisdom. Wisdom, to be wise, is to have respect for truth and an appreciation of beauty. And neither of those things should be treated as an embarrassment. And I think part of the problem is that people think to be beautiful, something has to be, again, this scientifically proven and truth, and it doesn't. It can be beautiful.
In the chat, they're asking me why I suggested Scott Adams. I guess you're asking me that because Scott Adams is very much a conservative. The Scott Adams thinking is very much in the frame of Jonathan Haidt. He is I would call him a social intuitionist. His book is very good. I mean, I'm not technically a Trump supporter. I didn't vote for Trump. I mean, I wouldn't call myself a supporter, but I don't suffer from Trump derangement syndrome like some people do. So
yeah, it's Jordan Peterson derangement syndrome, Trump derangement.
Exactly. Yeah, it's becoming friended derangement syndrome. It's spreading.
It's spreading and mutating. It's like bird flu from hell.
Yeah. So maybe we'll wrap up here. Do you guys have any close? Like Gary's got to get to work. It's pragmatic culture's blanking out now. You any closing thoughts, Joe?
Just that the more people I think react against Peterson and the obvious truths he's talking about, the more it's only going to get him a somewhat larger following. And also, I was given some correction by a friend. The writer who I was talking about, who Peterson, who was sort of secondhand referenced, is Corneliu Codreanu, and he is a Romanian fascist during the times of World War II, and Peterson has sort of referenced him through a secondhand source.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it for me.
Any closing thoughts, Gary?
Yeah, kiss and make up, be friends, talk to each other. Don't just chop people off because of what you think they are. Take the trouble to find out if that's actually what they're saying before you cut them off.
That's good, John Stuart Mill right there. You gotta understand both sides of the case, and the only way to do that is to get someone who believes that shit and talk to them.
Yep.
So, all right, we'll end it there. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. Just hang on for a second, I'll say a quick goodbye. And thanks for the super chats, guys. Popog for $5 says good stream, all friended. Quit lying. You love all the drama. I do love the drama, but I mean, only if it's going to be educational. I'm not going to bore myself through drama. Come on. All right. Take care, everyone.